Matisse, going from the indoor season through this postseason, just where are you at right now? Going into nationals, how much confidence are you bringing into NCAAs?
Right. I think that this men's team's got a lot of momentum. Going into conference, I don't think that we were favored on paper to win that meet. But something that Jerry kept saying is like, we're not an on-paper team. You know what I mean? Like when the lights shine brightest, like we're the team that seems to step up. We did it indoors. We weren't favored to win, and we won the meet. We did it outdoors. Weren't favored to win, and we won by a decent margin. So coming into this outdoor national championship, I think that's what we're bringing in most. Is just a lot of momentum.
What helps you guys make that difference from on paper to in practice?
Right. This is something I've maintained this whole year. Is like the Ducks just know how to step up when it counts. You know, these athletes. I don't know what it is. Something about being in Tracktown, USA. Competing with athletes who are some of the best in the world, but a sign of a great athlete is someone that knows how to bring their best performance on the biggest stage. And I think that that's something that the Ducks pride themselves on. Like we know how to get the job done when it counts.
Is that something you have to teach when you're here, like as an upperclassman?
Right. For me personally, I think it was something that was ingrained in me at a young age. I grew up playing a lot of different sports, you know, basketball, soccer, ran track. Something that my basketball coach always said to our team was we were a fourth quarter team. So like didn't matter how the first 3 quarters of the game went, when the shots really counted and the game was on the line, you know, like we were the team that was going to step up and make those shots. So for me, like I've really carried that through my competitive career, but I think that these athletes just, I don't know if they took it from when they're kids or if it's just the culture that we breed on the team here, but yeah, it's just something about these Ducks.
Do you like talk about the experience of winning the indoor title do for you coming into this meet?
Right. It gave me a ton of confidence. You know, I take a lot of confidence from the training that we have. I trust Jerry's program wholeheartedly. And so I knew where I was going into indoors. I knew that I wasn't the favorite on paper, but I knew how I was feeling in practice. I knew how the workouts were going. And winning that title just reinforced everything. You know, did it give me more confidence that I already had in myself? Not really, but it did reinforce all those positive things that have been happening in practice. And so going into this meet, you know, I'm kind of in the same position. I'm not one of the top guys on paper. I didn't run a top 5 time in the country this year. But practice has been going really well. I feel like I got a lot of momentum through the first part of the season. And so, yeah, I want to try and come in to this weekend and do something special.
You talk about just the competitiveness that you seems like all of the guys have. How is that competitiveness kind of within you guys when you are training and preparing for a moment like this? How is that kind of essentially paid off and heading into this meet?
Yeah, right. Something I will say is in practice, it's not, you know, we're not racing each other. Jerry does a very good job at making sure that we aren't going out there and killing ourselves in practice. And honestly, that might be one of the ways that we practice for these big moments is you train with intentionality, you train like within yourself and relative to one another, and kind of like restraining yourself through practice relative to your teammates can kind of teach you like when it's time to step up, like you got all these extra gears that you haven't really been touching in practice that you're just ready to let loose.
Last time we got to talk to you were pretty frustrated about how that race at Big Ten's went. You talked about
Right.
like how the tactics went.
Yes.
Where'd you go back between now or then in the first round, and what'd you look at?
So I felt like even at regionals, if I'm being completely honest with you, I was frustrated with how regionals went as well. I felt like even though I qualified for NCAAs, it wasn't my best showing. I felt like I had more on the day and I just wasn't in the right spots that I needed to be. And so going into this meet, we've sat down, we've looked at some film, we've kind of thought through what my strengths are and what my weaknesses are. And I'm going to try and go out and emphasize my strengths and do what works best for me. And so I'm hoping you guys can see that in the prelims and hopefully in the final. Yeah, and same with Kadal. You know, he has his strengths and his weaknesses. And so I'm sure Jerry's drawing up a plan to make sure that he gets the most out of himself this week.
You talked about like how you're talking about the first 700 and then the last 100,
Yes,
how you
right.
felt strong about kind of each of those. Where are you with each of those spots?
Right. So we've done some workouts between conference and now where, because I feel like my last 100's better than it's ever been. Indoors, I felt like in the moment, my racing tactics were really sharp, where this outdoor season, like I've made some mistakes, and that's in the first 700. And so we've done some things in practice to work on that. We've done some stuff in film review study to work on it. And so, yeah, stringing together the first 700 meters of a race and then the last 100. I mean, if you can execute both of those, that's how you win a race.
Can you tell me about some of the advantages of having nationals or any big meet be a home meet? I mean, you've experienced plenty of both. You've traveled far for some national meets like Virginia Beach, but now you get a kind of a home meet. So tell me something about what are the biggest advantages?
Right. Last night was the Hall of Fame ceremony, and an athlete that's getting celebrated there is Joaquin Cruz, one of the legends, 800-meter runners in Oregon history. And we were talking about it together, how this Oregon crowd is second to none. You know, he was saying like his favorite place to run in the world. He's running an Olympic final. He's running multiple national championships. Nowhere he'd rather run than at Hayward Field with the Oregon crowd cheering behind him. And so he was telling me like, just let that carry you. You know, there is a home field advantage for the Ducks this weekend. And that's because the crowd will be cheering for them louder than it'll cheer for anyone else. And so I'm really hoping to use that to my advantage. And really just let it carry me through this weekend.
Does that add any extra pressure with it being in your backyard to perform?
You know, I think that this crowd does expect some special performances from the athletes. But I feel like we prepare all year for that expectation. Is it a little bit of extra pressure? Maybe. But it's nothing that hurts us. You know, all that extra pressure is just going to make us step up even more. You know, we're going to be ready when the spotlight's shining brightest.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned being ready, right? With the season, this season being as long as it is at this point of the season, with the heat coming also, how are you battling the mental and physical fatigue that you and a lot of your teammates are probably feeling at this point? Right.
So the way that college track works, I feel like you have this like mini peak for indoors, you take a little reset, and then you're trying to peak again for outdoors. If I'm being completely honest with you, like I'm planning on running a post-collegiate season. I'm hoping to represent Canada on the national stage. And that's going through till September. So right now I feel like I'm just like, every day I'm getting better and better. Like we took a little bit of a break where we were building through kind of April. I didn't really race until late April, early May. And so I feel like this is the last couple of weeks is really the first time my body's come around. I feel like I'm really starting to get race ready. The fatigue that came from like the early blocks of training are starting to turn into like sharpness. And we're just ready to execute. Like we're ready to step up this weekend.
So does your training look a little different than some of your teammates? Are some of your teammates tapering more than you would be right now?
No, we're all tapering quite a bit. You know, this is the biggest meet of the season. If you can perform really well at NCAAs, like that is the biggest feather in your cap. Training does look different. You know, Simeon Birnbaum's a 1500 guy. Me and Kadali are 800 specialists. So some of the specific sessions we're not doing together, but a lot of the base stuff that you do in the shoulder seasons, so in the fall or coming off of indoors, we're doing all that together.
When you decide to buzz the hair, and did Kobe Kessler try to get you to do the same, dude?
Yeah, I saw him do it. I thought it looked great. For me, it was more of a heat retention thing. When we were in Texas 2 weeks ago, it was so hot, and I grew up in Canada. The UV scale, I thought it stopped at 10. I didn't realize that it went above that, and I'd never experienced humidity before. So I've been to some places where it was hot in the past. And I knew that I can struggle a little bit in humidity. And so I thought the best way to make sure that I'm staying cool is have minimal hair on my head. So that was the buzz. Yeah.